chats. I'm meeting with my fellow author, Craig Whitney, and he to me is I think of Craig Whitney and I think of the Second Chance Man, and that's, I think, the title of your chapter. Is that right, Craig?
How to give yourself a second chance.
How to give yourself a second chance. I say fellow author because there's 14 of us and we're all doing chapters in this mind-blowing Making a Difference book, how to make a difference in your neck of the woods as well as globally. Let's launch into it and find out more about Craig. So Craig, I know a lot about you from dealing with you, but who are you? I know that's a blunt question, but if you'd like to explain to everybody else.
Who am I? Sounds like a single sort of profile here, but yeah, I'm 38 years old. I work in transport by trade. I'm a courier. I've been in industry 9 years. Been on an interesting journey on the development of the Second Chance Man. It's basically my life story put together with concepts that I've learned that have been taught to me that I'm now passing on to others that have developed this whole Second Chance Man. I live in Brisbane, Australia, very passionate about men's work and helping those men give themselves a second chance.
Yeah. Okay, and how do you do that?
So regardless of where a man's at, there's no cookie cutter approach to how to give yourself a second chance. Work with men where they're at currently. For example, could be a young 18-year-old man who's navigating through the craziness of his life at the moment. And he's more conscious about doing the current moment of life responsibly. So for that instance, it could be purely on mental toughness, mentoring or transformational educating, on navigating through that area of life responsibly without going too crazy and abusing himself and those around him. Or it could be a man late in his 30s who's married, couple of kids, a dog, a mortgage, maxed out credit cards, and dealing with the overwhelm and confusion of what a man is, and on that tipping point of something happening. And in this current state of global climate with men in particular, behaviour at the moment tends to be tipping over. I mean, just look in the crime statistics in the newspapers, the media, the majority of it are targeting men who are breaking down but don't yet explain the lead up to it, whether that's unresolved child issues, father-mother issues, past issues that have been left to naturally suppress over time and eventually come out sideways. Just like me, I did exactly the same thing on my story. I had an active father in my life, but he wasn't present. I actually had two fathers, my biological dad and a foster dad. Both were brilliant men in their own gifts. What they taught me is all they knew on how to be a man through their lens, but obviously when it come to my survival, it wasn't good enough. For example, my biological father taught me work ethic coming from the land and farming, beef cattle farming, taught me how to work, and that's carried through.
Grassroots type stuff.
Taught me the essence of working my ass off to get where I am and beyond. And my foster dad taught me a lot of other skills of what it's like to be in a family of siblings, because I'm an only child by blood. And that was another sort of skill that I had to learn to live within a family, that it's not all about me.
Yeah.
All of those skills that they never taught me, like how to express my emotions healthy, how to take responsibility and ownership of actions, you know, when I go off the rails in life, and just generally how to be an accountable man. And that evidently did carry over till my early 30s, where I did break down, had a violent outbreak, and which led to a journey of going through the justice system. That was back in late 2017, 2018, where I got publicly shamed in the media And again, 2019, when my behavior relapsed. However, this time I was a lot more consciously aware of being exposed to men's work and the supportive nature of how men's circles and brotherhoods work, that I managed to learn the skills that my father's, I wouldn't say never, but I reckon didn't know at the time.
Mm.
And it was learning through the elders and different men of different backgrounds on how to save myself in
Yes.
order to rebuild myself.
Yes. And I think there's a disconnect with, I don't know if I'm generalizing, but with males, I think I am generalizing. With a lot of males I know, they tend to disconnect because that's what they've been taught from, you don't cry, you don't do this, you don't express yourself. And if you do, that's seen as weak, and which is not healthy.
I've just never been taught to express in a healthy way. And
Yeah.
of course, men to boys, we tend to duplicate and emulate what's been happened to us some of the time.
That's right.
Sideways in some form or another, whether on our own self or those around us.
That's right. So what gave you the desire to join this particular book, Making a Difference?
I started a book back in early 2019, just as a rough draft.
Mm-hmm.
I felt I wasn't ready to write, and I just gave it away. And this opportunity came up, of course, a few years down the track later, along my journey, gone through some more stuff, healed a lot more, had some skills and tools under my belt. And I thought it was time to gain some credibility within myself and around me, and produce some written content and start to stand out for myself and really give the Second Chance Man some exposure and share my journey, because there's men out there who could relate to my story.
Oh, so many. I think there's a real calling for it, and I think you're going to do big things. From what I've heard from you so far, I think you're going to go places. So your chapter's entitled, refresh my memory,
How to give yourself a second chance.
How to give yourself a second chance. And so it's pretty much about what you've been talking about. Is anything else you want to add about the chapter contents?
I've shared pretty much a taste of my story and my journey within that chapter. And I've given 2 pillars of how to give yourself a second chance there, just as a starter for those curious. Let your curiosity lead you, men. Just be curious. Always be curious and humble, and just let the curiosity lead you to where you need to go. Obviously, for the next other 2 pillars, it's all about working with me one-on-one, and that's okay. Not a sales pitch or a gimmick, but it's genuine brotherhood to brotherhood, helping men to become better men for themselves and their families and the world around them.
That's right. What intention did you have for the reader in particular?
The intention to create awareness where they're currently at in their life, whether they could be a man or someone within a family dynamic of a man who knows a man, say a brother of a sister, or a husband of a wife, or a significant other of a partner, or a cousin, or someone in some sort of dynamic. It's creating that awareness. Without awareness, no transformation or therapy can work at all. And then from acute awareness, we can then start to take action if people are ready to take action for themselves.
And what I love is that we do have some male authors in this book, and quite often with this type of book, it's very female orientated. So I think it's important to have the male voice. So that's good. I thank you for that.
I heard an interesting figure about that the other day, actually. 80% of personal growth and development is women.
Mm.
Go to any event, seminar, networking group,
Mm-hmm.
favorite speaker,
Mm-hmm.
certain title. 80% will be women and 20% will be men.
I know, it's crazy when you think about it. We're all human beings. We all need help. We all need second chances. We all need to be shown sort of a way or have a mentor. So I don't, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
At the end of that, from those 20% of men that actually come and do the work for themselves, there's 80% sitting at home wondering, well, they could be thinking about suicide, or they could be thinking about acting out in a way, or taking their anger out, or something disastrous, or some sort of, or taking a step that won't generally benefit their surroundings. And that's the men we need to focus on.
Yes, and often you don't know about it until it happens. And I know here in New Zealand, I don't know, you might know in Australia, but in New Zealand, I think we've got the highest rate of suicide for males in the world, which to me is staggering. And a lot of people have no warning signs. And that's heartbreaking, especially because I've got a son. So important what you're doing in the chapter. What do you offer?
What do I offer? I offer a 4-pillar system. So it's not a cookie cutter approach like some of these coaching programs out on the market. It's a simple 4-pillar system. I work with you as a man or as a family and teach you what you want on how to give you a second chance. And what I mean by 4-pillar, it's what you want. And inside those 4 pillars, it's like going to the shed and opening up the toolbox. There's no set tool to fix a certain thing. We might have to go through a number of toolboxes in order to do the work. It's like servicing a car or a piece of machinery in the shed. One tool itself is not one step. There might be a multitude of tools within there that we may need to work on. It's generally up to the man or the client themselves, what they want in the moment. It could be a life coaching experience where we work on a multitude of things at once, or it could be a mental toughness scenario where we work on one thing and just go for one thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's not a one approach fits all, is what you're saying. Is you tailor it to the person. Is that pretty much what you're saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of tools within those 4 pillars that I can teach. It's generally what does the man want at the moment. One example that I'll share that I've in the book is getting your priorities right. That's a key step to awareness, is knowing where you sit on your priorities. And generally, if you were to put your priorities 1, 2, 3, 4, the man himself is number 4 and wondering why life is falling apart. If you put that on a bus, and just imagine for a moment the metaphor of driving the bus. If the man's at the back of his bus, who's driving the bus? And so we've got to shift those priorities around to put the man himself at number 1 priority, and say work. Some other priorities may include his job or career, business, family, and then his partner. We rearrange those priorities in order that suits him. So he's up the front, driving his own bus and taking control of that steering wheel and taking ownership of his own life. Because if he burns out down the back, which a lot of men do, well, then what service does he bring to the world, to himself, most importantly, to his partner or significant other, to his family, and even to his job or business or responsibility of providing?
Wasn't you? It might have been you on a call, or it might have been something I heard somewhere else, where it's instilled in men that if in a crisis, women and children first. Okay, I get children, but but why women before men? That seems to me crazy, because everybody's just as valuable as everybody else.
So that comes back from societal conditioning, that men are warriors, men are the ones who put their lives first, which holds some depth. Unless you learn to save yourself first, you can't save anybody else.
No, exactly. And we're taught that as women. We're taught that as women we have to look after ourselves first, look after our mental health. And I think that's why there's 80% of women who do this, but yeah, I mean, men need to realize that too. They've got to look after themselves first, because everything else will fall apart if they don't. Would you agree?
Exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I was on Wendy Corner's podcast yesterday, and she had this great question that I'm going to steal, and it is, what is the mantra that you live by? I thought it was an excellent question, because everyone needs to ask themselves it comes back to priorities and what you think is important. So what could you leave us with as a not mantra, but as just something that resonates with you, is important to you?
What resonates with me is I've learned to put myself first. Put yourself first, men. Living for others, and put yourself first. Because if you put yourself first, that is a sign of strength. And I mean that in a clean, selfless way. If you anchor yourself, put yourself first, put your needs first for you, then you can serve your other areas of life. So self first is really my mantra.
I like that. And I think we should all live by that. Okay, so thank you, Craig, for coming to share your chapter, or a little bit about your chapter. So the name again, guys, is Craig Whitney, the second chance man. And that's something that I'm certain resonates with many men out there. So I'm sure it will be well read. Remember, you must get your copy of Making a Difference. Believe me, you won't regret it, because there's so many wonderful, inspirational stories in there, and it's worth a read. 14 authors all coming together, all with the same intention. How could you go wrong? It's out on Amazon on the 8th of the 8th for the Southern Hemisphere. That's Australia and New Zealand, of course, and everywhere else in the Southern Hemisphere. And US, UK, and the Northern Hemisphere, the 7th. Wake up early, get your copy, and you'll be set. Okay, thank you, Craig, for joining me. Yeah. Oh, and is there something that you're liking? You're actually promoting as your.
So my free gift to the men out there is, I have a training or free masterclass where I share the 4 pillars on how to give yourself a second chance, and then from there you have the opportunity to book in a one-on-one conversation with me to see where you're really at, to dial in where you're at, and then we go from there. Either work
connect with you. Wonderful, excellent. Okay, well, thank you, Craig, and thank you for joining me. And I've enjoyed our chat, and I know you're going to do good things.